Welcome to our video presentation on the case study of the cultural incompatibility between BenQ and Siemens, which led to the eventual acquisition failure. BenQ, Taiwan-based consumer electronics contract manufacturer, was initially established in 1984. On June 7, 2005, BenQ acquired the money-losing mobile devices division of Germany's Siemens and created the fourth-largest mobile phone brand, BenQ Siemens. The acquisition was conceived because it was thought to be mutually beneficial. From BenQ's point of view, the expanded sales and distribution channels globally would help them achieve profit faster. As for Siemens, the selling of their unprofitable mobile phone unit and change in focus to a more money-making industrial operation was predicted to be a wise move to help recruit investor confidence. The headquarters of the newly merged company was located in Munich, Germany, and more than 7,000 employees were employed globally. However, soon after BenQ's takeover of the Siemens unit, it started suffering financial losses. BenQ's shares dropped 2.7% on the Taiwan Stock Exchange upon announcing the buying of Siemens Handset Group. This led to BenQ obtaining bankruptcy protection 1 year into the acquisition, and having to officially shut down its factory in January 2007. Also, the German government enlisted a new management to replace its previous team. This meant a loss of nearly 3,000 jobs. The failure of the acquisition has been attributed to be largely cultural in nature, with BenQ belonging to an Oriental Confucian Chinese culture as opposed to Siemens' Germanic European culture. The insufficient knowledge, lack of understanding and inability to accommodate the cultural differences sparked off various cross-border conflicts. This ultimately resulted in the falling through of the acquisition. The cultural factors that led to the acquisition failure are namely individualism versus collectivism, power distance, low versus high context, face-saving, and corporate culture. Individualism and collectivism refer to the relationship between individuals in a group. Siemens, with an individualist index of 67, was established to be more individualistic than BenQ, which only had a score of 17. The European government and society have shaped most businesses, which have resulted in an institution of many norms and values which made up Siemens' organizational culture. We focus on equity, pursuing freedom and independence. Significant values in the Confucian Chinese culture include respect for elders and the importance of family. Collectivism is then derived from the Chinese traditional culture since it values harmony, collective consciousness, and are relationship-oriented. Moreover, under the influence of Confucianism, they also adopt moral and ethical standards. Siemens' individualistic culture resulted in the Germans making decisions based on their personal interests, whereas for BenQ, in a collectivistic culture, decisions will be made with the group interests in mind. In Siemens, the individualistic staff tend to be highly competitive and motivated, since they believe that being the best will help them reach their goals. They also tend to show more initiative, voicing out opinions during discussions. This leads to robust debates in the company. However, strongly voiced opinions might result in a negative relationship with managers or colleagues, especially when working with people from a collectivistic culture like that of Taiwan. In contrast, being a collectivistic culture with emphasis on teamwork, the workers in BenQ will be more collaborative. Harmony, which is highly valued in a collectivistic culture, led to Chairman Lee of BenQ keeping Siemens' mobile division executive, Clement Juice, as the chief executive in the newly merged company. Also, he retained 2,800 research and development employees from Siemens. Chairman Lee thought that by keeping all the original German managerial team and employees, the transition gap would be smoother, thus maintaining stability. He wished to focus more on maintaining relationships rather than the rule of law. The Germans might be perceived by their Taiwanese colleagues as being too aggressive in expressing their opinions. This thus results in a tense working environment. Unlike the German culture, Taiwanese employees may feel less confident in bringing their ideas across to others, and be less inclined to speak up since their individual efforts might not be recognized and rewarded. Therefore, their inactive participation during discussions at work might lead to their German colleagues' displeasure.
Power distance refers to how people view status difference in various cultures. Highly decentralized, Germany is classified as a low power distance country with a score of 35. Germany scored lower in terms of power distance as compared to Taiwan, which had a high score of 58. As mentioned earlier, due to the Germanic European culture, Germans are individualistic and they are concerned on being treated equally. Thus, the difference in ranks are not relevant to them as they believe that superiors and subordinates have equal rights. German egalitarian characteristics also resulted in the thinking that they can achieve what they want if they work hard, since all people deserve equal opportunities. On the other hand, the hierarchical structure in Taiwan is derived from the Oriental Chinese culture, which stresses on obedience to authority and maintaining respect for elders. Besides, there is a sense of confusion dynamism where relationships are ordered by the difference in social status. In Siemens, an interactive and participative communication styles are often seen during meetings. Besides, the Germans strictly separate working life and their own personal time. With the Germans demanding the need to be treated equally as their superiors, if they are told to work during their off days, they would exhibit displeasure. Also, they may question and refuse to obey their superiors' directives if they feel that something is done wrong. In BenQ, as a result of the Oriental Chinese culture, it is a hierarchical society where centralization is popular and people just accept the hierarchical order that needs no further justification. The person of a lower status is supposed to treat the person of a higher status with respect, listening to what they say and not voicing their own opinions. Due to the hierarchical culture of BenQ, the person of a higher social status are expected to take responsibility and be accountable to the company and public should a severe issue threatens the company. Therefore, Chairman Lee made a public apology, acknowledging the losses incurred and promising to alleviate the situation. Soon he tendered his resignation as he felt accountable to his co-workers. Siemens personnel might question the Taiwanese style and wonder why they're just following their superiors blindly without thinking whether the idea or instruction is logical and workable. Whereas BenQ personnel working in Germany might feel lost due to the lack of explicit commands given, since they are used to being given clear instructions. Siemens Germany comes from a low context culture while BenQ Taiwan comes from a high context culture. Siemens, an organization from a low context culture, might be relatively more open, confrontational, and aggressive during discussions or communicating with their Taiwanese colleagues. As compared to BenQ, the Taiwanese workers tend to be more indirect, value discrete behaviors, and the preserving of harmony in the company. The aspect of a high context was illustrated as BenQ's chairman when he avoided any form of head-on confrontation when questioned about the issue regarding the layoff of Siemens employees. Such an approach may seem inappropriate as ambiguity is preferred over incorrect communication of information. This possibly well-intentioned move was misunderstood and misinterpreted on the German media's part, which could have been portrayed as the deliberate act of deception, as the media claimed that BenQ was intentionally exploiting Siemens to launch the BenQ Siemens line of mobile phones with no real intention to revive Siemens operations. Personnel from BenQ might negatively view those from Siemens as too forthcoming, while personnel from Siemens might have the misconception that those from BenQ were evasive. This could have nurtured a sense of dislike for the German counterparts within BenQ and one of mistrust towards the Taiwanese counterpart among personnel within Siemens, thereby straining relationships. Coming from an individualistic culture, personnel from Siemens were essentially more concerned with preserving their own face, known as self-face concern. While BenQ, an organization from a collectivist culture, the personnel were likely to concern themselves with the preservation of their own in-group members, known as other-face concern. For BenQ, shame functions to influence the entire group and not just the individual. Due to their respective face-saving cultures, both cultures differed in their crisis management methods. In individualistic cultures like in Germany, the preferred intermediate course of action would be to remove negligent and incompetent management personnel. The likely motivation behind this would be to preserve the remaining executives' faces, as by doing so, it reflects a sense of accountability and impartiality on their part. However, when BenQ reported a significant loss from the acquisition of Siemens' unprofitable mobile unit in 2005, the board of directors rejected Chairman Lee's resignation in response to the financial losses incurred. The decision was in accordance to the Confucian Chinese culture, which is important for them to stand united in tough times. Also, this was an attempt to preserve both Chairman Lee's and BenQ's face and not bring shame to themselves. However, their act to defend their own network might not have been well received on Siemens' end, as it is likely that they have been perceived as condoning irresponsibility and preferential treatment for higher hierarchical status.
Created using Powtoon.
No two corporate cultures are the same. We need to understand that they are influenced by their respective national cultures to a certain extent. Both Siemens and BenQ have deep roots in their national culture, namely the Germanic European and Confucian Chinese national cultures respectively. An organization like Siemens can be classified as having an Eiffel Tower corporate culture. Relationships are specific and only confined within the organization, with no personal implications outside of the work context. On the other hand, BenQ falls under the family structure, which has this hierarchical structure where the higher authorities are like parents in the family, where the subordinates are like the children. Unlike the Eiffel Tower corporate culture, authority is often incontestable and extend outside of work context. Another corporate culture difference between BenQ and Siemens involves managing change. In BenQ, the higher authorities are the ones to respond to changes. However, it is not so direct and clear-cut in Siemens. There are lengthy and rigid processes to undergo by the employees in which the change is notified from the bottom up. BenQ could have regarded Siemens' approach to change as inefficient and a waste of time. On Siemens' part, they could have perceived BenQ's approach to be slipshod and not meticulous enough. The merger between Siemens and BenQ was plagued by an array of challenges that were mostly cultural in nature. We seek to propose some possible strategies that could have been applied to prevent the failure of this merger between the two vastly different companies. The strategies are namely to restructure the management when acquiring a company, educate the employees on how to assimilate the host country's difference, and forming a third culture, which is the new set of cultural norms within the company. When acquiring a company, BenQ should have implemented a set of rigorous rules in order to gain easy control of the company and employees. Instead of gradually restructuring the company, Chairman Lee should have changed the entire managerial team and employees in the first place, so as to improve the transition gap and minimize any communication issue. By choosing to acquire the German manufacturing unit, BenQ should have put in place a structure to manage intercultural differences. There should be a good and new managerial team of intercultural experience, and they should have met beforehand to discuss the challenges that they will face in such an intercultural merger. This will also prompt the company to brace themselves and prepare to adapt to a new environment. The next step after the leadership reshuffling would be to sufficiently educate and inform the employees on how to assimilate a host country's culture. National culture and corporate culture is interlinked and not static. The employees have to take time to understand each other and why these decisions were made. Culture is a dynamic process that is ever-changing. They must understand that not everyone is created the same and they're influenced by different things from all over the world. Therefore, we suggest the formation of a third culture. The third culture will create a new set of cultural norms within the company and serve as a linkage between Confucian Chinese and Germanic European cultures. This negotiated culture will be a compromise between the two companies. It is not possible to assume that both companies will have an equal say in the creation of the third culture. The new corporate culture will be more influenced by the dominant national culture group. BenQ is the one of the more dominant culture, as it is tied with a long historical roots and a deep Confucian Chinese company work ethic that is stronger than that of Siemens. Hence, in our suggestion, we think it would be better if BenQ adopted a work ethic closer to that of Siemens. Overall, the contrasting working communication styles between Siemens and BenQ resulted in acquisition failure to a large extent. The root of the issue lies in a cultural difference between the two countries. Siemens having a Germanic European culture, whereas BenQ is part of the Confucian Chinese culture. Both cultures differ vastly and will surely result in conflict, which resulted in the falling through of the acquisition. It is only when both cultures appreciate and accommodate each other, try to think and understand from each other's perspective, that it may have resulted in a successful acquisition of Siemens. In conclusion, it is not that mergers are difficult to enforce, but rather it is a matter of achieving and identifying the correct aspects to compromise on and equipping their employees with the relevant skills to adapt. This is the end of our presentation and we hope that you have enjoyed it. Thank you.
Created using Powtoon.